You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Welcome to the show. The interview subject that I have prepared for you is from Wales, and his name is Lucas Woodland. He's the singer in rock and metalcore outfit Holding Absence. The catalyst for the conversation is their new album, The Greatest Mistake of My Life. Before we get to the chat, I'll let you know that my audio is absolutely potato. I recorded it in the State Library today, meaning that my dog is barking right now, never mind. I conducted the interview in the State Library today, and I had to use my Apple AirPods, and consequently they sound like shit from the microphone's perspective. So bear with me through my part of the conversation. Lucas, he comes in loud and clear, so here he is. And he comes in very loud and clear to begin with. I like it, I like the enthusiasm. Let's do it. Here he is, Lucas Woodland.
Yo, dude.
Mate, how's things going?
Hey, how's it going, brother? Yeah, good. Thank you, man. Sorry, just get my... There we go. All set up. Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Very well. Yeah. How's the calls or the interviews? You know, these bloody
chunk. Yeah, it's going all right, mate. Yeah, it's obviously it's like 1:30 a.m. Yeah, so it's kind of like a weird sensation having to do like to be honest, I don't sleep very well anyway, so it's not like it's weird for me, but it's just weird having to be enthusiastic at like fucking bedtime, you know.
Yeah, why didn't they organise for them to be done, you know, at like 10 o'clock or a more rational time for you?
In all honesty, I'm probably better now than I will be at 10 in the morning. I'm very much a late night kind of guy, you know.
Oh, yeah. No, that's cool, mate. Well, look, I enjoy the album, and I've got to be honest with you, what you guys do would not be typically something that I'd dig, but what I like about it from the top, it's beautifully recorded, and the drum sound, I'm going to give you a big award here, okay? It's easily got the best drum sound that I've heard this year so far from a release.
Awesome. Wicked. Thank you.
Yeah, how did you do that?
So first and foremost, something quite interesting that we did with the drum recording of this record is we recorded the cymbals and the shells separately. So we basically just had far more control over the sound. You know, there was literally obviously no bleed whatsoever, you know, and every mic was, you know, it was like, you know, I don't need to over explain it, but yeah. So, you know, some takes were just shh, and then the other ones were just you know, and it kind of just gave us a lot more freedom to mess with. And the dude who produced the record, Dan, he's worked with Enter Shikari, Bury Tomorrow. He's worked with some brilliant bands over the years, and he's the guitarist of Sixth as well. So, you know, he's like,
oh wow,
he's like,
yeah, with Mikey.
Yeah, he's got his own accolades in a very different way. You know, like us and Sixth would never really play a show together, I don't imagine. But yeah, so you know, he's just somebody with a lot of attention to detail, and I got to be honest as well. I'll give a lot of credit to our drummer as well, because I think the way that we are as a band, and I know I'm speaking to you as an Australian who would never have seen our band, but, you know, our live show is very, very intense, you know, and yeah. I sweat it out, and our drummer rips through that kit like you know, I've never, it's mad that I'm in a band with the guy who I've seen go craziest, you know, because he's crazy, and it's something that I think Dan really wanted to capture, was that kind of, weirdly, the drums are an emotional part of our band in a way. You know, that they are like a different way of affecting the emotional output, you know?
That's such a good way of describing it, that the drums are an emoting part of the band, because I've always felt that way. I'm a bassist and I do play, obviously, in a rhythm section, and without good drums, it doesn't come together at all. Like, that's the platform. No matter what you guys do on top of that, if there isn't some kind of synchronicity, then as far as the musicians are concerned, it misses the mark. Have you heard of the band? I assume you've heard of Cradle of Filth.
Yeah.
Cradle of Filth. Yeah. So I've interviewed Nick Barker about the album that they released about 22, 23 years ago now, Cruelty and the Beast. And he hated the drum sound of it. And consequently, it's not an album that he can listen to this day, a lot from memory from my conversation with him. So, but you guys haven't done that. You know, you've got something here that I actually think the drum sound you've captured here will be used as a template. You know how some people, they hand
wicked,
the record
man,
to somebody.
that's so sick. Yeah, Thank you.
Yeah,
Because, I remember it might not be your particular bag, but like for years we would demo songs using the Paramore Riot drum sample pack, because that was just like, just sounded so perfect, when I'm like, so that's wicked, man. And, that's a huge compliment, because me personally, like, I'm not overly like attention to detail on that kind of thing. I'm way more about like the obvious stuff, and like, I honestly just trust the people around me can catch those things that slip through my net, so it's wicked that something like that has kind of reached out to you initially, which is class. So, yeah.
Sweet, man. No, thank you. Yeah, no. Look, and I got the obvious question, but the obvious question is, why is the album called The Greatest Mistake of My Life? But I'm going to flip the script here, because I know just about every interviewer would be going, okay, Lucas, tell me about the greatest mistake you've made in your life, but so is it a concept album, given it's got such an evocative title?
No, so our debut record was a concept album, and it was basically me looking at the inception and the experience and the death and the aftermath of a relationship, and I went through every type of emotion you'd feel, and I just found it really restrictive, to be honest. Sometimes in life, restrictions are what help you do extraordinary things, but I felt like I just didn't want that for this album, but the title comes from, I don't know, I've told the story a million times, so you might have already heard it, but the title is named after a song that already exists by an artist called Gracie Fields, and it was released in 1939, I think. So, it's very old. It's at least 80 years old. And basically, the reason we named the album after it was because my grandmother said that her uncle had done a cover of it back in like the 50s on like a small 7-inch. And it just really struck a chord with me, because, that's not an avenue of inspiration for me. When I go and hang out with my nan, I don't expect to be inspired or, come up with lyrics or anything like that. And that kind of really resonated. And we named the album that very early on, and then kind of worked backwards in a weird way. So all the kind of cinematic, timeless, as we'd like to aim for, those kind of vibes, they were kind of us working back to a title that had somehow found me 80 years later,
Great story. I did read it, and it's an extremely compelling story, because I understand it's a family member too that you've derived inspiration from, who not necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, originally sung the song but made the song popular. Is that the story?
Basically, it was, to be honest, I can't imagine anybody even really listened to the record. It was more a case of like the fact that a family member of mine had ever recorded his own voice was kind of quite chilling to me, especially back that far away. It's easy to plug in a SM57 into a computer these days, but back then, that was quite a big thing. So
yeah. I read that you used to play covers, which is actually what I do when these bloody COVID restrictions are lifted completely. You can read a bit too much into things, but I think I can hear that you're a seasoned musician based on your performance, given the amount of live performances you've had to do interpreting somebody else's songs. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I feel like, I got to be honest, I'm very much a product of, you listen to some artists, like, for example, like Sleep Token, I'm assuming you've heard them, like, I listen to that dude's voice and I'm just kind of like, I don't know how you'd even find that is your voice, it's such a unique voice. And there's so many artists like that, but for me, I grew up listening to Green Day, My Chemical Romance, Slipknot, and I'd spend hours and hours in my little back cupboard room, kind of like singing along at the age of like 12 to all those vocalists and trying to sound like them, and I think, like you said as well, I feel like I earned my stripes as a musician before I earned my stripes as a songwriter. So I definitely kind of collected a lot of experience as a performer before I put that into action, if that makes sense.
That's such a great point you raised there. And I don't think people understand that you do need to be a musician before you can truly hone your songwriting craft. A lot of people, that being at the coalface like you were has given you, I don't think you'd be the singer you are right now unless that had taken place. So when you were playing covers though, because I know I cop it occasionally, not that often, but did you meet many punishers that are like, why are you doing that? That's boring. There's no point in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, music is objective and people are very, passionate about the way that they feel. And that's what makes music so special, right? And even now as I can, if I went to a pub and there was a band on and they were covering, in Wales, they'd be covering Stereophonics, and like, for me, my subconscious would just kind of be like, that's cool, good on you, but like writing music is the big cheese, because on a fulfillment level, it there's nothing quite like creativity, but that doesn't mean that performing music isn't special, it's kind of like saying, you can't like art without wanting to draw or whatever, it's like art is a subjective thing, and as long as you can enjoy it, and like I said, like performing music is class regardless of what it is. And so I'm glad. And to be honest though, I bumped my kneecap on every stair up the flight, like there's not been I haven't skipped anything, I've failed at everything, and I do believe that to be an attribute as to why I'm even vaguely good at anything.
Good on you for saying that and taking ownership of that side of it, because people are very much afraid to it's not even about acknowledging failure. They just don't acknowledge that that's actually part of the process of being successful.
Yeah. Failure is as important to success as, the two most important parts of success to me are trying and failing, and then success is very much, and I'm happy to fail at everything. This is our second album, and I feel like, thank Christ, that we kind of not so much failed, but we definitely learned from our mistakes on this album, and I'm really proud of that.
How did you meet up with the guys from? I know Nuclear Blast and Sharptone are going their separate ways, I think, at the moment, aren't they? So was it via Nuclear Blast that you got put in touch with Sharptone, or how did that relationship come about?
No, so it was through Sharptone. So Sharptone, it's a real fairy tale story, and like I said, I'm from a small town in Pontypridd. I'm from a small town called Pontypridd in Wales, which is, a real kind of armpit of the United Kingdom. And, and I just grew up kind of forcibly kind of making my way through the music industry. And basically we put out one song as Holding Absence, and we toured straight away 6 days after. It was literally like release the song, tour for 10 days. And about 6 days into that tour, we got a message from a guy called Sal, and he was a rep at Sharptone, and he basically said that he just believed in us and he was excited to hear me, so I feel like our relationship with Sharptone exists purely because Sal and Sean, the two kind of at the time the main dogs, I do just think they really believed in us, and our connection with Nuclear Blast is a funny one because I love so many people at Nuclear Blast, and I've had such a wonderful experience working with them. But, every now and then I do an interview for like, Goblin Slayer magazine, or, what I mean? And it's funny because like, I'm aware that like, I kind of come in through the back door in an odd way, but once again, dude, I didn't sign to Universal for my first label. I signed to a label that I've already learned from and I'm climbing up with as it stands, and Sharptone as well. I feel like they're climbing up every day, every album, every release. Sharptone is becoming its own kind of beast, which is really special. So yeah,
that's a funny thing you mentioned there about Goblin Slayer fanzine and this sort of, because there's this. I mean, look at me, look what I look like. There's this perception that if you're into extreme metal or the heavy stuff, that you've got to look like it's 1989 or something. And it's
of course, yeah, and that's so not true, dude. Yeah, like but I feel like I work at a bar called Fuel, and it's like you picture every metal bar in every kind of city or village or town or whatever. Like Fuel is the one, and I've spent weeks, months of my life like pouring Iron Maiden Trooper beer while like Megadeth's playing over the speakers, and like. I love the metal world and the industry as a whole, because I feel like it's just like it's just unashamed. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't care. I like metal. You know what I mean? And like, and I really respect that, because I think, you know, music, there's a lot of trying to be cool in music, you know, and embracing something, whether it's cool or not, that's cool as fuck to me. So yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I love that attitude, man. Yeah, it's what I like to do with my interviews, because I do host a podcast series, so they'll release this as part of my as an episode of the podcast series. But it's about demystifying extreme metal and heavy metal, because I call all of what, you know, including you guys, from Morbid Angel to Sadistic Execution to you guys to even stuff like Paramore, to be honest with you, because it's got the loud distorted guitars. You know, it's not too far away from adjacent, if you like. And I think it's so important to explain to people that there are no boundaries with music. Especially with heavy music, because it's such a diverse genre. People from the outside looking in who have no interest in it like to pigeonhole so-called metalheads, yet metalheads actually look like you and I.
Yeah, of course, man. And you know what I love about music as well? Like you said, there's no limits, because if, you know, we look at this example, I very much enjoy ambient music. You know, if I'm like, if I'm reading, I love listening to ambient music, because it's just, I feel like I'm listening to music, but I'm not thinking about listening to music, you know? But, you know, if we looked at ambient as the furthest left, literally drone noises, you know, and then we look at metal over here, and then it gets to the point where we're listening to such extreme metal that the you know, the cymbals and the blast beats and the tremolo drop E guitars start sounding like fucking white noise as well. And it gets to the point where all the way left and all the way right are basically just doing the same kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, but it's how they do it. And I think that's what's special about music, is it's not so much about, well, it is about what you're doing, but it's also about how you're doing it as well, you know? And there's no rules really, which is the best thing about it, you know?
There are no rules, you're right. And there are still milestones that you want to see a band achieve. And you've done that already, in that you were on the cover of Kerrang! Was that something when you were growing up reading the magazine and you had aspirations to appear on the front?
Yeah, dude. Like, to me, you know, that really is like my life pinnacle as it stands, you know, because like you said, you know, I keep hitting home as well. You know, I played every rubbish show I could, and I bought every Kerrang! Magazine I could get my hands on. And, you know, as a younger dude, yeah, I just loved music, you know, and like, yeah, like the thought of me being on the front cover of the magazine, that, dude, I discovered Slipknot through Kerrang! You know, I remember the All Hope Is Gone mask on the front cover, and it was back when you couldn't go on Spotify and like, you know, glaze over stuff. You know, it's back before I would have even had a phone, you know. And I remember I went into WH Smith's with my nan, and she bought me Kerrang! And then I spent the rest of the week wondering what the hell they even sounded like. And then I bought the album, you know. So the fact that I could be on the front cover someday is truly, you know, amazing to me, because, you know, a decade later, having discovered Slipknot, you know, that truly did change my life. So it was a real full circle moment for me, and I'm proud of it, and I'll always be able to cling on to it. You know.
Yeah, have you got it framed in your parents' living room or thereabouts? The front cover.
Because of COVID, obviously, I haven't really seen my parents, to be honest. But the record technically come out 90-ish minutes ago. You know, so tomorrow I'm hoping to bump into them in town and maybe buy the record. And yeah, hopefully there'll be a lot of new framed objects in their household when I next go and visit.
Nice, man. Well, you're doing it, man. They should be proud, man. I mean, I think people, they don't understand or acknowledge, and you've made some great points through this conversation about knocking your knee on every step up. And that they're the bumps and the grazes that prove that you're on your way to, I wouldn't say fame and fortune, of course, because it's not really the case of rock music anymore.
Well, they're not synonymous anymore, either, are they?
I mean, these days, anybody with a bloody recording console, which they can download, pirate it, you know, for nothing, from their bedroom, can become a DJ or even a rock musician.
Yeah, for sure, man. So
it's an incredible environment we're living in. So with the UK, I understand the UK is coming out of lockdown now. Is that the case?
Yeah, as of literally like Monday. Yeah, like 4 days ago. Yeah.
4 days ago, yeah. So have you got touring plans? Because I imagine you guys, to your point earlier, about putting on a ripping live show, man. You just must be champing at the bit to prove to people
Oh,
that
dude,
you're
no, I
brilliant.
know, yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. You know, our last show was December the 12th, 2020. Was it? No, it was 20. No, wait, was it 2019? Yeah, it was 2019, our last show.
2019, yeah. Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So, like, you know, when you think, God, you know, and dude, you know, by far the longest stretch I've had in my life without playing a show, you know. So yeah, you're right. It is something that we're desperate to get out and do. As it stands, we've got a headline tour booked for November. And it's hard not to wish your life away. You know, that's my only real issue is like, I don't mind having to wait, but I've got nothing else to do. I'm not just waiting. I'm like wishing my life away at the moment. So to me, that's the biggest pain in the butt. But it's nice, you know, with you guys on the other side of the world now. It's like, and Japan as well. I've got some friends in Japanese bands, and they're playing shows. So you know, it's inspiring and motivating to know that it can happen and it will happen. But oh my God, the sooner the better. You know.
Yeah. No, agreed. Yeah, definitely. Hey, just a question. I've certainly spoken to Phil from Motorhead before. He's Welsh. So there are a couple of Welsh musicians out there. But
sorry, just quick. Phil from Motorhead. I recorded my first EP in his garage because his son, recorded. So we literally live like 10-minute drive away from each other. So small world.
Lovely guy though. Yeah, but it is a small world. When you come from relatively small scenes like we've got in Australia and Wales, you tend to be one or two. There's not very much like generations or spaces away from each other. I'm trying to find the right word. What's the degrees of separation? There you go. There's not many degrees of separation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Now, there was a band back in the day called Lostprophets who were doing very well, of course. And then, you know, that happened with those guys. Is that within the Welsh scene? Were you part of the Welsh scene at that? You probably were a bit too young for it when it all sort of blew up and happened and stuff. But I mean, that stops. I don't even think you can get that band's music on Apple Music or Spotify these days for obvious reasons. So
it's so taboo.
Yeah, it's taboo. That's the point. So is it taboo within the Welsh music scene as well? Because you hear and see nothing about it.
Well, in another life, it would be such a funny connection because I not only went to the same school as the Lostprophets, I actually grew up on the same road as Ian Watkins, the piece of shit himself, right? So, you know, in another life, you know, it would have been like, wow, you know, there's the biggest Welsh band of the last 10 years I went to the same school as. That's so cool. Whereas, and it's funny because nobody's ever brushed on this in an interview because like you said, it's so taboo. Nobody wants to talk about it. But I remember, man, the morning my old band had actually like somehow managed to get like an EP to Ian himself, you know, and like one day I was like queuing for the bus and my mum rang me. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And she said, yo, this is crazy. We've just turned on the news. Ian Watkins is on the news. And my brain rushed. I was like, wait, we gave him a CD like 2 days ago. He's on the news? What is he telling everybody about our band, you know? And then all that come out and it was like, holy shit. And then I went to school and I was being taught by like one of the more senior members of staff. And she left us for half an hour because they had to go around the school ripping posters down and removing every sign of his name within the school. So yeah, it was a really surreal, even now, I knew his nephew. I grew up with his nephew. Like, so it was fucking, and it's hard to talk about because it is only met with just pure disgust. You know, of course, as a human, you know, you can't help but feel anything but complete disgust for the whole situation. But weirdly, I was quite close to the blast radius and way before my music career had any form of success. So yeah, crazy. I've never been asked that before because, you know, it's such a taboo topic, like I said.
Yeah, people are uncomfortable. I tend to ask all sorts of questions and go outside of music and then come back into talking about music and stuff. But it's a topic that I've been wanting to talk to a Welsh musician about for a while because I didn't think it was Phil probably doesn't even know who, with all due respect to Phil, he probably doesn't even know who Lostprophets are. He's in a different quadrant altogether. You know, he's one of the godfathers.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, people know who he is, but he probably knows obviously who you guys are, but yeah, that Lost Prophet situation when it hit, it was like a nuclear bomb going off. That's such a good analogy you drew about the blast radius there, because it's not just a horrific subject to deal with in society, but I don't think, broadly speaking, rock and metal have been touched. We have now again with the guitarist in Manowar, Carl Logan, is
okay, fair. Stay away from him.
yeah. Well, he's out of the band now, of course. I think he might even be in prison on charges. I'm not sure, but I haven't. I mean, there's a lot of information, very difficult. A lot of hardcore, proper information is hard to get. But so I've got daughters. It's a horrific topic, but I think it's still worth sort of exploring some of these things, because it is current affairs. It is out there.
It's an interesting. And that's the thing, is like from where, I'm starting, like I said, I'm literally the other side of the planet to you. And that was just like cataclysmic to me. It was like the whole of every dude, like I said, I knew his nephew. We'd play gigs, me and his nephew. And, he'd turn up to those shows, and like and everybody'd be like, oh my God, the guy from Lostprophets. And, and it turns out like, sorry, that's my phone telling me. Sorry, my phone's telling me I'm running out of battery. But, it completely changed in retrospect everything, because like everything was in that shadow. And I'm so sorry for every other member of that band. That's the truest travesty in modern musical memory, is that people had to be dragged down with that piece of shit who had worked hard as hell, so
are those guys still playing, or has it just scarred them so much that they're just well out of the music industry now?
They did a project called No Devotion. I don't know if you ever heard. It was the singer of Thursday. Do you know Thursday? They were like an emo band. The singer Jeff Rickley, he fronted their band, and they were called No Devotion. And they were kind of like a post-punk band. I think they were a bit more like Joy Division-y kind of vibe. But and they gave it a good go. But I think even starting a band at that age is just hard, let alone after what happened. It's there's a, so. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, you guys are flying the flag for Welsh music, man. It's, just take it with a grain of salt what I said up the top. When it's just because I'm 42, right? So metalcore sort of happened well after I'd gotten the metal, and that
of course,
blend you've got. Yeah, I do appreciate the music, but I think the main thing for me is just the quality of musicianship that you guys bring. See, that's the inspiration. And the way that you're able to mix up your voice. What that tells me is hundreds of hours of both rehearsal and performing to get it right. And people don't understand the hard work and the craft behind that, because in many ways it is a scientific thing. It's an A and B test situation where you're just trying to basically improve your craft to a point where you're on a good track. And I haven't heard your first album, but I will go and find it, because I love listening to the development. And I'm sure it's probably...
Sure. Yeah, and I got to be honest, transparently, it is very tangible, No
worries, mate. Well, this has been a great chat. As I said, look, if you're comfortable with everything we've spoken about, I plan on releasing it on a podcast, if that's cool.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely, man. And it was lovely to chat. And, I find I love talking to people of all, demographics and ages and nationalities and stuff, because there's just, I feel like at the end of the day, I kind of get bored of the 20-something scene friends interviews, you know what I mean? So it's been nice to have a chat with somebody from a different lens, I guess. And thanks, for being respectful and objective, and man, it's been a pleasure. So
no, indeed, it has been a pleasure, brother. Yeah, so look, good luck with everything. I'm sure there's going to be great success for you guys, man. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, man. Hopefully we can chat again someday as well. It'd be awesome.
Absolutely. I'll keep on doing this, so hopefully we will. I'm sure we will.
Cool, man. All right, nice one. See you soon, dude. Have a great day.
Thanks, brother. You too, man.
Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Thanks for tuning in. That interview subject was all the way from Wales. That was Lucas Woodland. He's from the band Holding Absence. Thanks again.